Hey everybody, all right, I'm ready to start part 3. It is going to be James chapter 1, verse 13 through 17. All I'm going to be able to get through this series is 5 verses. There is just so much here. And as I was getting ready and preparing for this and getting ready to tell you guys, it just is just blowing out of me. So I'm ready to go. I hope you're ready to listen. Let's go ahead and get started. Remember, we want to read the Bible to discover who God is. Okay, that's why it was written. It was written for us to discover who God is. We're going to find him. We want to be like him. We want to see him. We want to, what does he think about? Who is he? Who is this guy? What does he do? Why is he here? What does he want with everything, right? What is this? If he made everything, why? We want to read the Bible to discover who God is. So, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in here. James 1:13. It says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted. So we're going to stop right there. God does not get tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Okay, so that, God is not evil. He does not commit wrong. He's not even tempted to commit wrong. He's not up there debating whether he should be, full of hate or anger or whatever. Okay. God says in the Bible, he doesn't just say he is loving. He says he is love. Love can't hate. Love can't be, and it's not just something he does. It's not just something he acts like at times. He is love. If you want to see that, is John 1:4. John 1:4. He is love. And so you kind of have to, you got to see this thing from God's perspective. He can't be tempted to do wrong. He is love. So when you or I or whoever shows love to someone else, we are being God-like. We are behaving like him. That is who he is. He is love. He can't be tempted. He can't do wrong. Love can't be hate, right? He can't do it. It's not even a thing that he can possibly be tempted to do. And so people will get really silly if I don't think, maybe somebody watching this video thinks this, but God does not tempt people to do evil things, to just see what you're going to do. And he is not, that is not in his nature. That is not who he is at all. All right. Before I get ahead of myself here, we're going to go on to the next chapter or verse. So going on to 14. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. So if you've been a Christian for any sort of time, you've heard this passage probably and talked about it and sin and different things like that. And we want to make sure that, when temptation comes that we turn and we don't do that thing and blah, 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 blah. Listen, we're going to have a mindset change here. We're going to kind of step out of this. Remember, we want to read this thing from God's perspective. Who is God? Who is this guy, right? We want to see this in a different way, see it from God's perspective. The context, this chapter as a whole, if you haven't seen part 2, go jump in there and watch part 2, which starts at James 1:1 here. The context of a whole here, this is not about temptation as in an action, like a sinful action. This is a temptation of life's trials. Okay? You gotta be there with me, okay? This is in the context, what we're talking about here is life trials. We're not talking about going and beating somebody up or robbing or stealing or doing these things that we know we shouldn't do, right? This is not the type of temptation this is talking about. This is talking about, in context, life's trials. and being pulled away by life's trials, which ultimately leads us to death. Because God's saying, hey, look up here, look up here, look up here, look at me, look at me, look at me. Hey, whoa. Up here. So, okay. All right. Here's the thing about God. You ready? This is huge. You've got to get this. You've got to get this. God is not looking for sin in your life. God isn't up there looking down, trying to find where did you mess up? What's wrong here? And what, blah, blah, blah. And da, 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 da. And so much of Christianity has gotten that wrong and preaches a God that's like that. I'm sorry, he's not like that. He's not up there looking for what's wrong. Not up there looking for what it is in your life. And da 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 da. It literally said a few verses earlier that God is generous without finding fault. That is exactly contradictory to a God who's looking for faults in your life. He literally just said, I am generous without finding fault. Okay. Another mindset change here. You know what God is looking for when he looks on the earth? He is looking for people who are like him. That when life trials come your way, you don't behave in hate. You don't behave in any other way than how he would behave. You are generous without finding fault. When your boss says something to you and you just want to jump back at him and hit something, instead you act with honor. Instead you act with love and kindness, right? Like you don't talk behind people's backs. You don't do, when life trials, big, small, whether they happen in a day, they happen over the course of 10 years, something major, something small, doesn't matter. When life's trials, that's the temptation we're facing here. When life's trials come up, we behave like him. And God is looking for people who are like him. He looked at Peter and he said, Peter, do you love me? And Peter said, yes. And God said, then feed my sheep. And he said it to him, like begging him, please be like me to my people. Be like I am to other people. Love people. I am generous without finding fault. I am trying to crown people with life. If you watch my part 1 of Jonah, God is actively from day one. How can I get into these people's lives? How can I turn? I am concerned. I want good for these people. I want to rescue these people, bring them in, show them who I am. And God is not looking for sin in people's lives. He's not, are you right and wrong? Are you right? Blah, 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 blah. God is looking for people who are like him. I don't know who you think God was before, but that's what he's looking for. And anytime you go and you interact with God and you start talking to him and you start really getting, hey, God, what's up? What are you doing today? What are we up to? God, thank you so much for the things you've given me. Where are we going? What are you looking at? Who do you want to touch today? Like, he does not talk to me about those things. He does not. He's there trying to find people who are like him. You're like, I don't believe that. I don't know what to tell you. It's right here. I'm not making this up. This passage is not, okay. This is about, this chapter is about being deceived by life's trials. I have watched people, here, we'll move on. I'll get into this next. I'll prove it to you. It's right here. When it is full grown, gives birth to death, blah, 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 blah. Verse 16, don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. What would that be in the context of like sinful actions and things like that? No, he's talking about, because he had earlier in here is life scriptures and persevere and come out on the other side. And I'll crown you with life. Push through it. Don't allow those things. So what people do is I've watched people walk away from God hardly ever because of a major sin issue. People walk away from God because they have a trial of life that hits them and they think, well, this thing must not work then. Well, it must not be right. I'm having these financial struggles. I've been tithing. I have sickness in my life. I've literally prayed for people who got healed. We have these trials in life that come up, and he's saying, don't be deceived. Whoa, if you're having a trial in life, it is not from God. This is not to represent to you God's nature. If you have sickness, if you have a struggle, if you have financial, this is not representing God's nature to you. He would never tempt you in that way. He would never put a trial in your life like that. He is a generous God without finding fault. He is trying to crown you with life. That's what this whole thing is about. Life is going to give you trials. Don't be deceived. Every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father. And you gotta see it from his perspective. He's a father. If I'm looking at my son, I want to give him everything that's good about me. I want to give Asa, my son, my daughter Aspen, I want to give them everything that's good about me. I want them to have. That's who God is too. I mean, if you're that way, don't you think he's that 1,000 times more? He is looking for, He is trying to give you his best nature. His very nature, his real nature, his all nature. Like, everything about him is good. Every good and perfect gift comes down from above. If you're facing something that's not good and perfect, it's not from God. That's the deception. And people get pulled away and go, well, I don't want to go to church because when I go to church, I still face this, blah, blah, blah. God's saying, yeah, I know it's going to happen, but walk through it. Walk through that thing. Be generous like I am generous anyways. Be loving like I am loving anyways. And I will crown you with life. Find ways to be like me. And don't let life circumstances determine who you are. You know why? Because it says God never changes. He does not change like shifting shadows. And he's telling you, hey, whatever you go through, do not change. I don't change. You can literally build your life on God because it will never change. It doesn't matter what trial you're going through, what thing you face, whatever. I don't care how big, monstrous, ugly it is. It doesn't matter. If you establish your life on God, whether it takes 10 years, 15, 20 years, 20 minutes, I don't know, you will be crowned with life. And God is looking for people. Hey, when life's trials come, keep your eyes on me. I don't change. Rely on me. And that means me and you, I don't have to change either. Okay, we want to kind of flip this thing around. I don't have to change either. I can be like him, right? I don't have to be moved to and fro and all this stuff. I can be like God. And that's the beauty of this thing. I mean, he will always be love. He is generous without finding fault. He gives life. Life will change, but he does not. He never changes. You can build your life on God and prosper. There's 5 verses. Here's what I want to end with. And this is, if you've been reading the Bible for a short amount of time, or you've been reading the Word of God for years, this has been really changing me. And I think this can begin to change you too. Start reading the Bible. You ready for this? Start reading the Bible to be like God. We're discovering this God who's generous without finding fault. He is actively looking to find ways to pull people in, people who are far away. Like in Jonah, in the land of Nineveh, calling Jonah over to speak to people who are far away, have no consideration. He is like, ow, can I touch them? How can I get them? He is actively trying to love. He does not change based on circumstance. He does not change. He isn't just loving. He is love. We're finding this God. And when I read about it, and when I see it, and I see it in my life, and I see these other things, and I look up and I'm like, God, you're so good. You're so amazing. You're so just unfathomably loving and kind and gracious and actively pursuing me and people. And start reading this to go, how can I this week be generous without finding fault? Who's a person in my life that I can go out of my way for? That has mistakes, that has maybe even done things to me. Doesn't matter. Life's trials, it doesn't matter. We're unchanging. I can go out of my way for and be generous to. And show love of God to that person. I mean, that's who he is. That's what he's like. And he's warning you. Hey, you're gonna have trials in life. Don't let it change you. And God is up there looking not for people who are acting right. He's right, like he's not looking for where's the sin in your life or blah 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 blah. He's not a God like that. He doesn't care about those things. He's looking for people who are like him. You want this Bible to really start changing you as you start asking, you start reading it to discover God. And when you discover God, you begin to ask yourself, how can I be like him? I want my kids, again, to have the best parts of who I am. I want Asa to have the best parts, Aspen to have the best parts of who I am. God wants you to have the best parts, all the parts, because they're all the best, of who God is. That's what's on his mind. That's what he sees when he sees you. He sees like, hey, I'm love. Are you going to love today? Can we love somebody together? Can we go and do this thing? Can we give generous to somebody without finding fault? Can we go crown someone with life? What does that even mean? How do you just, honestly, it just comes down to speaking good over people's lives without finding fault. You don't have to go find fault. Anybody can do that. Be a person who's generous with your words, generous with your compliments, generous with your time, generous, right? Gosh, 90% of my days when I'm asking God, what do you want me to do today? What can I do for you? He's saying, go home and spend time with your family and love on your family. This is what he gave me to do, is love on my family. He's such a generous Father, kind. He's not just loving, he is love. I'm sorry, I can keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going on this thing, and we're gonna. As we get to part 4, 5, 6, 7, you're going to hear this over and over and over. We want to be like God. And if you can read the Bible to discover who God is and start training yourself to think, I want to be like God, this will start really impacting you and changing you. He doesn't change based on circumstances. He is generous without finding fault. He crowns people with life. God, I want to be like you. You're amazing. You're incredible. You're kind beyond belief. How can I be like you? And you start talking to God like that, and he suddenly goes from being up here to a friend. When you start talking to God like, God, I want to do that. I want to be like, yeah, where that? I want to have that heart. I want to give generously. I don't want to find fault in people anymore. I want to forgive people and embrace them. And bring them in. Like the prodigal son story. Well, never mind. That's for another day. But when you start talking to God about those things, boy, it brings God in as a friend, because you're saying, hey, I see this amazing heart that you have. I want that. And suddenly he starts talking to me like a friend, and we're getting to know each other because we're on the same level. We want to love people. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. So if you can grab hold of that thought today, how can I be like God? And don't let life circumstances change you. This literally, God is warning you. He's warning you. He's saying, hey, don't be tempted by life's trials. You're going to go through them. Push through them. Do what's right anyways. Continue to do the things you know are good. When you don't know what to do, do the things you know are good. Look for ways that you can be God-like. Start talking to God like that. God, I want to be like you. Show me how I can show generous love without finding fault. Show me how I can be love to somebody. Like, start talking to God on that level, and I'm telling you, you'll start having a relationship with God that's beyond anything you've had before. It's good. It is good. And God is kind, and he says things that'll surprise you. Like, hey, go home and love your family. Just spend time with your family. Just go love them. Just go love them. Give them your attention. Because that's what he would do. That's what he does. And so, anyways, I hope that speaks to you. Stick around for part 4. I do these every Sunday night. I'm going to start doing maybe little blip clips throughout the week. I don't really know yet, but this thing is continuing to grow in my heart. I hope you stick with me. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and look for more videos. Thanks, everybody.